Hello, everybody. Dacia here. And guess what? I have a surprise corporate caffeine on a Friday. I know normally we do Wednesdays at 12:30, but I have a new friend, Chris Goad, and I thought, no. This is a great Friday afternoon topic, especially going into the fourth quarter to talk about what in heaven's name is going on or not going on with your sales and your sales team. And so Chris and I had an amazing conversation recently, and I just had so many light bulbs going off. So let me go ahead and introduce Chris to you guys. He is the co-founder of 360 Consulting DFW. So he does not just sales training, and I don't mean just because I think that is absolutely critical, but literally, and Chris, please forgive me if I'm messing up the semantics here, but literally he helps companies build sales systems and models and processes in addition to helping the team's performance. So did I get that right? Like, do you give me an A+ for description, or did I get something off?
Yeah, I absolutely give you an A+. So you were paying attention when we were having coffees. Thank you so much. It doesn't surprise me. Yeah, we kind of look at it like this. The sales is the engine of your company, and so we build those engines, we tune those engines, and we manage the performance of those engines, and really help our clients get to a place where they can do that on their own. So call us crazy, but we love what we do. We love working with entrepreneurs and business owners and salespeople, and really helping them reach the goals that they want to reach, and grow their business. And if it's an individual, in a company, we love helping those folks too, because that's kind of reaches our why, and that's to really help people achieve their goals.
Yeah. So what are you seeing out there? And it's so funny. It's hard for me to pick which question to start with, but what are you seeing in regards to what's happening in the market, or where sales teams are maybe going a little sideways, in this time and day and age?
Yeah, it's an interesting one. I think you and I talked about the need for sales and marketing to really be cohesive and working together, and I think that's more important than ever before, and it's always been important. But we really are finding that your sales teams in your business, they've got to be sharper than ever. They've got to learn how to work remotely. They have to learn how to generate leads. They have to have great conversations and ask great questions. And sometimes their window of opportunity to do that is much shorter and tighter than it's ever been.
Yes.
If you don't have the right stuff in that regard, you could have great people, but they're just not having the success that they really possibly could have if they have all those tools in their toolkit, and they know exactly what to do, exactly what their process is, definitely who their ideal customer is. Those things are just so important. And I think, I was at an event yesterday, and someone was talking about all these things that were in play before the pandemic really just got accelerated. So COVID was really an accelerator of things that were already in motion. And so those are some of the things that we've been seeing in sales for quite some time, and now they're even more important and more in play, because of where we are and what has happened, and the changes that's put in place that aren't. It's not going to go. People say, well, when we get back to normal, it's not going to go back. It has changed. This was an inflection point, like many other things like this have been in the past, and so you've got to be sharper than ever.
Completely agree. It's interesting. I have been from stage and from my content saying for, well over 10 years now, like, sales people are being pushed out of the decision-making process. You've got to be aware of what's happening here, and you've got to learn how to bring a new approach, because great salespeople bring a lot of value as a guide to a decision process. So I could not agree more with what you're saying about it being an accelerator, because that's exactly what we've seen. I've been going, guys, pay attention. You are getting behind this. But I wanted to jump on something else that you said really quickly, if you don't mind, is you said, what if we have a great team, but they're not getting the results that they could be. And I really want you to expound on that, because so frequently I hear people saying, my sales team stinks, or they're not closing deals, or they're not good, or we need to replace some people. And I think there's a real knee-jerk reaction to point to the fault of individual salespeople or sales teams and say, well, you're just not good at sales, you need to go. But talk to me about that. Do you agree? Because what you just said there points to maybe it's not that simple.
Yeah, I think it's not that simple, and you're really onto something, and it's a pretty deep, it's a pretty deep and complicated subject. But the 30,000 foot view, I think often companies just don't have the right things in play for those people to be successful. They don't have clear messaging. They don't have clear sales process. They don't have really targeted clients. They maybe not even have their sales organization structured properly, so that you've got the right people doing the right things, and how do you break up the responsibilities differently. So I think all those things are so important. We were chuckling the other day when we chatted. Was working with a client, and kind of gone through a deeper dive and kind of our analysis of why they were having the problems that they were having. And I walked in his office after a full day of one-on-ones with his team, and I said, I think I know what the problem is. He's like, what is it?
Tell me.
I think it's you. He's like, oh, I was afraid you were going to say that. So, that's really kind of it was funny. And I was in a position, we were close enough and confident enough in one another that I could actually say that to him. He wasn't offended. But what we often find is that the things in the company have misled people to go do the wrong things. And so if the old days, we would hire salespeople, we'd tell them all about our products and services. We generally give them an idea who we sell to, and then we'd say, go get them, Tiger. The world's your oyster. And that's just not good enough anymore. It doesn't work that way anymore. So you've got to have way more. What you do is so important, Dacia, and the marketing piece is so important, but sales feeds marketing and marketing feeds sales. And if you get those two engines running together, you really have magic. And then your salespeople just have to be sharper. Those conversations are going to be shorter. They know about your competition and you before you ever show up. So when you get that, every single conversation is so critically important. And if you don't have a plan for that conversation or a roadmap to how to ask the right questions and really, really dig in and make sure that, I know you need what this value prop can deliver for you, and I can connect those dots. Those are the things that we really help companies figure out. Don't get me wrong. I think activities that salespeople do are important, but those activities are different today than they were even 5 years ago, certainly 10 or 15 years ago. It's not just smile and dial. It's not just go cold call. It's not just send emails. It really needs a more kind of a holistic plan and approach, and many different things are in play to be able to get to the point where you're really able to have great conversations and really understand how you can deliver great value for a prospective customer or an existing one.
Completely agree. Mark Edwards, it's amazing to see you on here. I mean, there are just so many things. My brain is just going through. There's so many things that you just said there. When you're talking about the conversations are going to be shorter, that's a great example of that. We don't have the space anymore to do the full-blown traditional, consultative selling. And what I mean by that from a messaging standpoint is, as a salesperson, especially if you're in a complicated environment or you have a complicated process, product, service, whatever you're selling, and you're selling to smart people, you can be predictive. You can guide, and think, I have a feeling of what's going on. You can test out ideas. You can go what I call more into the deep end earlier with prospects, because you're seeing so many similar scenarios, similar trends. You should already know what's at stake and help them get to those aha moments faster versus that very slow process. And also what you're saying about, smile and dial or dialing for dollars. Don't get me wrong. I am never, I believe in leading indicators and activity metrics. However, if you have not prepped those activities for success, where, I remember early in my sales career, dialing for dollars. And honestly, and this is so embarrassing to say this, anytime somebody answered, I freaked out. I was like, what do I say to a stranger? I was so good at leaving voicemails. And if they called me, that was my ideal scenario. But literally, if I got them on the phone, I freaked out. It was horrible, And so you've got, and just now accelerate that 15 years in the future. I mean, you really have to be ready to bring value and sit in your confidence and your mastery, not in a posture of, please talk to me, or you're the 1 in 100 that's finally not going to say no. I mean, what a terrible beatdown for a career that has so much significance and brings so much value and allows strangers to connect as problem solvers. I mean, I think it's just not acceptable to treat sales like that.
No, I agree with you, and I think a lot of fundamental principles that have always been in play are still in play. They just happen much faster, and you have to be much more articulate. And we always look at a client's kind of processes, and we look for ways. Most of the companies who we work with, they kind of have it. They just don't put it in play properly. So we spend a lot of time really kind of digging in where they've had success, and where their best customers are, and who their best performers in sales are. Sometimes that's the business owner, believe it or not, that they're, they still have great stuff, right? And so, but you really have to dig in deep and find those things and really have a plan. Every meeting is critically important. Every conversation is critically important. And at the end of the day, if your salespeople are not kind of leading that process, if they're being led by the prospect, that's a problem. And so that doesn't mean that there's any manipulation or trickery. That those days are completely gone. You can't sell like that anymore. Sales, as we define, is really delivering value for what someone needs. What could be more noble than that? But truly, you have to lead the process. So your salespeople have to really, really be coached, trained, articulate, and on point to be able to lead that process, to really understand, and also to know when, this is not a fit. And so I'm not going to try to shove a square peg in a round hole. So I think salespeople have to be better educated, quicker on their feet, faster. And that all comes from, if you relate it to athletic endeavors, when you're, you hear football coaches talk about the game slowing down for a quarterback, or golfers saying, I was in the zone, or whatever it is. When you don't have to think about it anymore, when you've got it so ingrained that it's just natural, and the process, and the steps, and how to ask the questions, I think that's when you have your best salespeople doing their absolute best work. But it takes intentionality.
Yes. It really does. In the comments over here, Mark was talking about, of being a dance, and that planning makes it so much better and more exciting, and you use the word value there. And I agree. And I would say the one thing I would add on to what you're saying is that value is defined by the customer, not by the company, not by what you think value you drive, not what you think about your position in the market, but how it's being perceived and how they apply it. And that you have to do that early work to make sure that you're crystal clear, that you're aligning with where the customer really is in their mind, in their business, and in their perceptions, instead of just talking about value as you define it on, over in your little closed off area.
Yeah, that's a great point. I could use this wonderful tool here as a paperweight. And so if you're trying to buy a paperweight and I'm telling you about email and texting, and you're going to look at me like, I don't know, I just want a paperweight. I mean, this would make a great paperweight. It'd be a very expensive one, but so value is definitely defined, as the customer sees it, not as you see it. And you have to really understand, you've got to ask the right questions. You got to really understand, what are they trying to solve? What do they really need? What do they really want? What are they looking to achieve? And you need to know that really, really well before you start, you know, presenting what you think are the best options. Right?
Completely. So I want to switch a little bit, because there was something that you and I were talking about in our conversation where you view building that sales machine, that business development machine with like a four-legged stool. Do you mind sharing that with everybody, like how you view that?
Sure. Thanks for asking. I think we defined a four-legged stool as, number one, your go-to-market strategy, and we're talking more tactically than we are, strategic. But it is a sales strategy, and who are your ideal customers? What is your value proposition for your different lines of products or services? You have to clearly understand those things and really hone in on who your target customers are, and make sure that you're hitting the bullseye more often than you're hitting the board, right? Like, we want to always be focused on our highest value customers, because if they're high value for us, we're going to be high value for them.
Yes.
The second leg of the stool is people. And when we say people, we're talking about everything from the right people, the right seats, the right people in the right seats, how to compensate those people, how to have ongoing development for those folks. All of those things are so critically important. And do you have the right roles and responsibility within your sales organization? Sometimes it's better to break up prospecting from the selling, and there are different ways to do that. And we've helped companies with that. The third.
And real quick, I mean, like, you're really defining different ways to structure the sales process inside of your organization. And then you're also talking about matching the right personalities. I mean, this is a deep dive into the types of people and the type of structure that works specifically for that individual company. Like, it's not a one size fits all there, is it?
No, it isn't. So you can have a great system, but not great people, and it's not going to work. You can have great people and not a great system, and it's not going to work. You have to have both, right? And so we don't have to run a complicated system necessarily. I tell people all the time, hey, you know what? We're just going to run the wishbone. It's super simple, right? We got 10 plays, but we're going to run those plays to perfection, right? And we're going to get the right people in every one of those positions so that we can do that. So yeah, or it could be more complicated too. So, it runs the gamut, and we meet our clients where they are, where they're at, and really help them figure that out. And then, the third leg of the stool is the sales process, but we define that much broader than most. So we're talking from lead to prospect to what's sales responsibility in lead generation? What is sales responsibility in creating prospects? How do we make sure that we're plugging in our marketing plans to everything that the sales team is doing every single day? And then what does our sales cycle look like? What is that customer journey from the time that we meet them till they become a customer? And then we go further into account management. So many of our clients have ongoing relationships, and so we want to mine the gold mine, so to speak. We want to continue to develop those relationships, enrich the value proposition for those customers, and really have a plan for that. Not just, like we tell clients all the time, and salespeople in our companies that we work with, when it's not just a visit, right? Oh, just popping in to see how you're doing. Every interaction with a customer has a plan. You are there with a purpose, and make sure that you have that plan, and clearly prescribed plan. And sometimes that goes very deep, and sometimes it's a little lighter depending on the kind of business.
Yes. And I love this part so much. Like, this is, again, one of the things you and I are just so aligned on. In my book that's coming out later this year, I challenge people to think total business development system, not marketing, not sales, but business development. And that's exactly what you're advocating for. And this is so much where ROI lives, because you have to run towards the right problems. Like, if you don't name it correctly, like if you say, we've got a marketing problem or a lead gen problem, but then the leads aren't being worked, or there's no clear definition of what a qualified lead is, that Bermuda Triangle that happens right there in the middle of sales and marketing flushing profit down the toilet, flushing opportunities down the toilet, flushing great salespeople down the toilet because they won't stay in an environment that sets them up for failure, or if they're having to prospect more than they should because something in the process is broken. I mean, it just derails so many things. And if you don't have an approach or a person, a consultant to come in and look and start asking those questions that shine light on blind spots and brokenness, I mean, it is profoundly impactful. And I will say it's probably one of the things that I believe has the fastest short-term impact that is also sustainable. Because when you fix those process problems, well, once they're fixed and once you police those processes, they can last, and then you stack success on them. So I absolutely love this one. And you're 100% right. Like, it's got to go all the way back through marketing and all the way through designing your customer experience, reducing customer churn. Because of course, you're not going to get as many referrals as you want unless that is done to just maximum effectiveness. And so I love it because there's so many places to find revenue growth. If you have a system to talk about revenue growth from current customers, revenue growth from maximizing your closing ratio, revenue growth from increasing lead generation, revenue growth from, extending your ideal customer profiles, like so many opportunities to kill it. But you've got to focus and you've got to have a system for that,
Right. Absolutely. Absolutely. And that's we usually find great opportunities in the companies that we work with in those areas. There's always great opportunities in that leg of the stool, if you will. And then the fourth one is really about sales execution. Like, what's the management tools? What is the management process? What is the ongoing training and coaching for your team? We're big believers in, coaching. I tell people all the time, if you have salespeople that you're managing, get rid of those. Those are the wrong ones. If you have salespeople that you're coaching, now you have something. But all great salespeople, pardon me, all great salespeople still need a plan, a coach, a roadmap. And so we build out the whole sales execution piece, and that's inclusive of what are your KPIs, what are your dashboards, CRM. How do you hold a successful sales meeting? Have you ever been to a sales meeting where everyone said, "Oh my God, here's the Monday meeting," right? Well, how do you have a very productive sales meeting? And how do you have productive one-on-ones with your individual producers? How do you turn those into real coaching times? And then, what is the frequencies that you should be, if you're leading sales in a company, what's the frequency that you should be working with your people? It certainly shouldn't be all the time, because if you're having to do it all the time, you're probably doing the selling and they're doing the watching. Yes. But you need to do it enough that you find coaching opportunities, you find ways to sharpen the axe. So that fourth leg is, it sounds super simple, and we try to make it as efficient as possible, but wash, rinse, repeat, right? Build a system that is going to really, really be the platform for how you manage your team, how you coach your team. You can set expectations before you hire folks, and they're going to get it. And you know what? If you have the right one, your sales folks are going to love it, not hate it. They're going to lean into it instead of leaning away from it.
Yes. Oh my gosh. Completely agree. There's like a little mini story that I wanted to share with you. I mean, it is funny because my brain is all over the place, but going and it crosses the borders of ideal customer and value and, making sure that you're pouring that and then policing the processes. But not too long ago, I was speaking with a firm and they had an aha moment around their ideal customer, that the ideal customer was much bigger than they were selling to, not because of potential increased revenue, but because of what they understood about the market. They would value the value proposition much more deeply and much more rapidly. But fear and processes and messed up messaging and messed up systems had in some people problems had prevented them from number one, naming their ideal prospect, but then later going after it. And now they're starting to go down that path, and they're seeing some really, really significant success. And that's what they wanted the whole time anyways, but like there were just so many things right here. And you just so eloquently outlined examples of how you uncover those limiting areas that are happening in your organization, because it's not a point the finger, this one person stinks, they're not closing enough deals, they got to go. That is a really, really important piece of that puzzle. And so I just appreciate so much where you're like, listen, there's lots of opportunity to uncover, but you've got to look at all of the four legs of the stool, to make sure that you've got a stable, awesome process.
Yeah, we really help, we help businesses kind of take the ambiguity out of those decisions. When you have a great system in place and it works, you instantly know whether people fit into that or not. So those decisions come much faster, and you're much more able to coach and train people because you have solid foundational stuff in place, that they're going to be successful. I've said it for years. You have some salespeople who kind of do it on their own and figure out their own way, and they make it, right. And that's maybe 1 out of 10, maybe, right, if you're lucky. But I tell salespeople all the time, if your way is not working, this way does. So let's just do this, right? Because we know it works.
Yeah.
So that, that repeatable, sustainable kind of environment where you build the system out, and you get it right, then it's going to be a game changer.
Yeah, I love it. Okay, so this is a weird question, but is it always so difficult to hire great salespeople? I hear this phrase all the time. So hard to hire a great salesperson. It's so hard to find great salespeople. Give me your opinion, or speak to that, because I know we've been speaking all around it, but I want to give voice to probably the most common refrain I hear, especially in the last year about this one.
Yeah, we're in a unique time, and again, the pandemic being kind of an accelerator. This was happening pre-pandemic, but there are less people who are willing to go into the sales field, because with a sales role, you've done it, I've done it, and we know many who have, comes great responsibility, and so. I think it's it's hard, right? If you're going to be great at sales, it's a 100% dedicated profession, and you definitely have to be a professional to be good at it today. And so, while that is true, that it's harder to find great salespeople, I think when you kind of look at what are the tools that you can do to really get talent in your organization and retain talent in your organization. Well, number one, if you build a great system, you might make average producers above average producers, and you may take above average producers and make them rock stars. And you can explain to people in the recruiting process that this is not what is normal sales. We have a plan. We have a process. It's a proven process. We know it works. Using behavioral assessment tools to make sure that you get people who are more of a fit for those types of roles. Really, really getting cultural fits for your company. So, this cliche to say, but we help lots of our clients, recruit talent, as you know, and we do it out of necessity. It's not because we want to be recruiters. We do it because our clients need that help. So we've come up with what we think is best in class ways to do that. And honestly, you really, it starts from the very first time you engage with that prospective, candidate, all the way through that whole process. And as you vet those people out, you just don't bring in people that aren't going to be a fit. And then when you bring them in, you instantly get them into the process that you know will succeed. And I think that really helps. I will say that dynamic of people not wanting to take sales roles, I don't know that we found a secret sauce for that. So we just have to be better at selling our company, our culture, our system, our sales process. I have a client who has a great sales team and has a great sales system. And he looks at it when he's interviewing someone for his company in sales, he will tell them, look, this is a special seat to sit in. So not just anyone, you have to earn the right to be in this seat in our company. Well, that really is a different conversation with someone now, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, what do you mean? And you know what? He's really right, because if you get the right kind of cultural fit, and a person who's inclined to not get their feelings hurt when they're told no, and can really be a sales kind of behavior profile. If you get a person like that in his business with his training, his onboarding, and his sales system, they're going to succeed. All they have to do is just follow the process.
Well, and I love that, because it's really unleashing their potential, because he's prepared to do that. So Mark was asking, what do you think of the old hire slow and fire fast strategy? Is that basically what you're outlining, or do you have a different take on that?
Well, yeah, I mean, I think that's a great way to put it. I would tell you that, we tell clients that in 60 to 90 days, so if you have the right things in place, you won't be guessing. We take the ambiguity out of that decision, right? And so, yes, I don't think that companies should spend time pouring into a bucket with a hole in it. So, hire slow and fire fast. Let's hire slow and hopefully hire less. Fire less, and let's get the right people the first time. And then when we get them, let's have a great onboarding training plan to snap them in as quickly as possible to the process that we know that works. And then it's like, literally, if they're not doing those things, or they're not taking coaching to improve those things, then there's a hole in the bucket. So just get a new bucket.
Yeah, absolutely. I love it. Oh my gosh, this has been so fun. I could talk to you all afternoon, but I think that kind of brings us around full circle, at least for today. We're going to have to do more of this for sure. My final thing is, what words of encouragement would you give to people? It can be incredibly stressful if revenue or growth is the problem. People really start ratcheting it up. You lose sleep, whether you're on the sales side or the leadership side. So what kind of encouragement would you give to people, especially in a really constantly changing environment that we now live in?
Yeah, I think that if you have a great product or service, or both, and that product or service can deliver great value, any problems that you're having around sales, those things can be corrected. They can be right set. You can have a plan that will take you to where you want to go. Those are not always things that happen overnight, but I would tell you that if you have a fundamental flaw in your product or your service, well, that's a different story. But if that's not the case, and you truly can deliver value for this set of customers, it's absolutely a solvable problem. There's no reason that we need to have angst about that. We just need to do the work.
Yes. Do the work. Yes. The right work. Exactly. I love it. Amen to that. Well, Chris, thank you so much for spending time with me and for sharing some of your wisdom with everybody out there. You guys, happy Friday. We wish you the best. We, if you cannot tell, both believe and advocate for prosperity for all, because it is possible. So wrap your Fridays on a positive note. If you have some sales calls to make, go make them. And then have an amazing weekend, resting and relaxing and ready to solve the right problems and do the right work next week. Onward and upward.